Okay, so there are three options that you can open. Of course, the project is on GitHub. This is the source when you open this. Then there's the LiaScript rendered version, and I will do it like in a more interactive way, just like the third link. You can open this too if you want to, and this will open like the editor version of the project as well as the results. So I will be switching forth and back uh, between uh, these two views or modes. So if you open this, it will open the file basically, or the uh, uh, this. Just wait a second. Uh, It will basically open the live editor, which runs in the browser. So LiaScript entirely runs in the browser. So this is our focus. We don't need any real service in the background. And it will refer to the Markdown document and still just load this and render this. So I will start with a little introduction and then we will get like into interactive mode. So this talk is about LiaScript and JXGraph, like a perfect match. So I will be presenting on behalf of us two, Sebastian Zuck, my colleague, and me. My name is André Dietrich, and we both work for the TU Berg Academy in Freiberg, which is, by the way, the oldest university for mining technology in Germany. And yeah, with lots of famous students from the former time. And basically, and what we will do today is what you will learn today. Use this is you will learn if you have a markdown document or something like this, how you can transform this into an interactive narrative story. And also the goal is you don't have to run any compilation. You don't have to install any tools or any tool chain that basically takes some code, transforms this that can be used for hosting. Basically, everything that is required is simply a Markdown document, which we have extended from the version, and it's always rendered in live. So whenever you make updates to your document on GitHub or on GitLab or wherever it is hosted, so when the student loads this or reloads this Markdown document or this course, it will always receive the latest content. So yeah, and I will try to show you how you can combine probably also JXGraph with the ability to run quizzes or for different tasks and something like this. And the greatest thing that I hope, so you don't have to learn a new language. You basically use or rely on your JSXGraph. Markdown, I guess it's most of you already know this. And as I mentioned already, no deployment nightmares, no building process. And these were the sources. So by the way, this is just like referring to the original uh, um, like project. If you want to do changes and to store them permanently within your browser, within IndexedDB, you can simply click on the fork. This will generate like a new editable version, and all your state will be stored here in this presentation. So in the next slide, I will simply let LiaScript or the system introduce itself like in 2 to 3 minutes.
All right, let's start with the million-dollar question. What exactly is LiaScript? Well, imagine if Markdown had a baby with interactive superpowers. That's LiaScript. You already know Markdown is fantastic. You probably use it for documentation, README files, maybe even presentations. But here's the thing, Markdown is static as hell. Your beautiful JSXGraph demos deserve so much more than static documentation, don't they? But here's where it gets exciting for you JSXGraph creators. What if the same Markdown that describes your math concepts could also become interactive visualizations? In LiaScript, a simple data table magically transforms into charts, graphs, or interactive elements, just like your JSXGraph demos, but built right into the narrative. Another tabular structure might generate another type of graph.
Or basically you can mix up and inspect it differently or something play around.
And of course, I support multimedia content such as audio. Video too. And as you can see from the demo below, I run on feature phones as well, even if they are offline. The 24th of May, we will have a pre-conference workshop on instant creation and publishing of free and in our workshop, you will learn to create open and interactive courses with LiaScript.
So the quality from this video is not the best, but it basically showcases that all the new browser capabilities like caching for offline text-to-speech output is even supported on this Nokia or on these feature phones. As you can see that once loaded, you can revisit your course with your quiz states and something like this, and everything is stored permanently within the browser. So just to get this idea.
But it is also possible to embed interactive elements from different sites directly, whereby I will try to figure out the best representation for the respective device automatically. And here's a fun bonus, LiaScript doesn't just handle mathematical visualizations. Want to add some musical notation to your math lessons? Easy. Check this out.
So basically you can add this, we run this.
The point is, LiaScript isn't just another documentation tool. It's about creating engaging, interactive learning experiences that work everywhere. Mathematical visualizations, musical notation, multimedia content, everything your learners need in one unified platform. And the best part? Your JSXGraph visualizations fit perfectly into this rich ecosystem. So let me put this in perspective for you JSXGraph creators. LiaScript is essentially Markdown with superpowers. And I mean real superpowers. You already know Markdown, it's clean, simple, universally supported. But LiaScript takes that familiar foundation and adds incredible interactive capabilities. Multimedia that works everywhere, from desktop to feature phones. Text-to-speech that can make your mathematical explanations accessible to everyone. JavaScript execution, yes, that includes all your beautiful JSXGraph code. And here's the key, an extensible macro system that transforms your JSXGraph visualizations into educational experiences. This is where the magic happens, folks. Now I can see you thinking, okay, this sounds cool, but how does this actually help JSXGraph work? That's exactly what we're diving into next. You bring the mathematical visualization genius, JSXGraph. LiaScript brings the storytelling, assessment, and works everywhere magic. Together, they're absolutely perfect. Let me show you how.
Oh,
Now I can see.
okay. Thank you very much. So one of the key concepts is basically we try to use or try to develop one document that we can reuse in different contexts. So this was like for a presentation for self-studying, and this was an idea that we brought in from our online conferences from eLearning Africa, for example. There are lots of languages in Africa that do not actually support text-to-speech output, especially from within the browser. So, and then we added this ability only to the text comments, which are marked with these dashes. So in the first animation step, or in the 0th one, this is the text output. This should be spoken out loud. And if you add a video to this on audio file that's recorded, so it can basically in every language, this will be played out instead of the text that will be spoken out loud. And as we use this, for example, like in a presentation mode, so you skip the audio content, you simply switch it off, and you can go through the same presentation as we did it, as I showed you basically, and this is how we use this or LiaScript in the lectures for computer science courses mostly, and your students also have the ability to read this if they want to in the textbook mode. So only the content and no animations, and everything will be represented as an entire document, as you have seen this so far. So the different types of visualizations or rendering, if you want to know like this, that you can use, or where you can basically use one document for different purposes. So this is just one of the core ideas or concepts, and I think it's pretty simple. So tables are rendered nearly automatically. So it try to identify the best visualization for it. You can have, like with a simple extension, if you add a question mark in front of it, it will try to embed audio like an image, and the question mark like exclamation mark and question mark. It's just like a video, or it's just image with audio. So this will embed, yeah, YouTube or any kind of locally embedded videos. And if you have absolutely no idea, so for example, like from Sketchfab or another resource that you want to try to embed, you can add like 2 question marks and then simply hand over the idea to LiaScript to try to embed this. And this is just like with those double braces, you actually, yeah, add the information when something should appear within the presentation. So if I go back to the presentation mode, yes. So I will, wait a second. So I will skip the quiz for the moment. So, or not the quiz basically, but you can also create like lectures, browser based, where we use WebRTC to connect browsers together, and then you can like ask questions based on a simple or simplified. This would be a survey, but you can also do like quizzes like this. We'll show you in a minute. So, in a pretty easy language that can be used by lots of people without actually needing to program. So, and now if I want to embed, for example, a JSXGraph, we have different possibilities in there. And I will show this to you. So there are like 2 building blocks in LiaScript. So one of them is that you have native support of, or nearly native support of JavaScript. That means you can really use a script tag within your Markdown document that will be executed when the slide is shown to the user. And we have something like an own macro system or macro system, which basically is something like you only have to think of text substitution, where you create dynamically like new code, new Markdown code, CSS, JavaScript, or whatever there is, and this gets injected within the document, into the document when we ever call this. So let me start with the script tag, for example. As you can see, there's scripts are natively supported, so they can be placed everywhere. And the only thing is, from your calculation, it's highlighted a little bit in the color of the presentation. So in this case, Russia started its invasion of Ukraine. So we changed this so you can output this in relative time, like with days as units, and you do some, simple JavaScript calculations. So whenever you visit this document, for example, it's not that yesterday the date or the days will be different. It's if you visit this tomorrow, there will be another date. It's really calculated quite simply and as highlighted. So users can basically, they don't have to trust you. So they can simply double click on this, inspect the code that was responsible for generating this kind of output, and they can play with it or mess around with it. So probably if I change the date, I can inspect, okay, what happens here actually? Well, let's put this into the future, for example, like 2026. So in 138 years or something like this. So it's quite a simple method. So scripts can be basically put everywhere, and the calculation is directly output. It's not that it's something like this alien spider that sits somewhere within the header or head of your document and then tries to manipulate the DOM from outside. So where the calculation happens, the calculation is mostly also put it out. And what's also possible is that you have something like multiple scripts. And in our case, you can define something like an input, for example. Like if there is a script that does some calculation, in this case, it only outputs the current input. So I want to actually manipulate this. And every script might have something like an output, like a topic. So I publish my topics on the longitude, I publish my topics on the latitude, and then another script basically subscribes to this simply by this also input marker, but then added this name of the topic basically. And there's just like an execution graph whenever. So if I click onto this, so there's an input, you have this. And it does nothing more and less than fetch the open Meteo API and simply adds these two values, and then it constructs something like it catches the JSON values, generates a LiaScript table, and this sends this back to LiaScript. And this calculation or visualization, you'll get this for free. So this is just like a JavaScript part in this case. So if we go on to another part is that since we use this for computer programming courses, and what our idea was if we are dealing with JavaScript or something like this, and we want to actually make the code editable. So the only thing that you have to do is you add a script tag to the end of your code block, or if you want to have a project, you simply create like a sequence of code blocks. You can add some names or something like this. So as you can see, they appear as in state 4. And in the script tag, you actually define how the inputs should be interpreted. If we have, we also have like a development server to which you can run C code and Python code and R code. So then the code is sent to the server and you get the result back. And it's visualized, and what you basically have in here is that you can, with JavaScript, it can be easily evaluated, and students can change this to or play with the code like to false. You see, it's not online. Let's take it super not online. Let's change the script that evaluates the station. So, and you can go back and forth between your versions. So if something didn't work out, you simply go to the last version, make some changes, and this will be the latest or last state that is actually added or stored within the browser. So these are the script capabilities. Basically, there's a bit more on this. And the next thing that I want to show you is the idea for the macro system that we actually apply. And here's a little example. So everything to don't infer or pollute basically the markdown documents. So we have a main header here on the top that does some stuff that's not important at the moment. And you have this, you can do this also per slide. And what you do is with this add highlight colon, you simply define a pattern, which whenever the interpreter detects add highlight, it simply substitutes this with a span of color. And then you can, for example, also pass like parameters like red and your JSXGraph code, and here like highlight blue and educational experience. So you see this first parameter defines the color like add null or 0 and substitute it, and the other one is there. So we can also like define something like or um, or black. I don't know. So it's something like this. So it's quite easy. So it's simply think of it as a code injection. So that's simply a replacement for something that stands here that you have defined. So in this way, you can define like your own extensions or your own commands within LiaScript. And so I created an extension. It's stored here on JSXGraph. If I open this, It's basically there's some JavaScript code, like in the source, and this there's the compilation basically. And the idea is that this document by itself is like can be used as an let's say as a for a tutorial for that teaches or says how to use this document. And if you go to the Markdown document and you watch this in raw file format, you see that there are some definitions. So there are some scripts basically loaded, some external or internal ones, and then we have the defined also such own commands that performs something that I will show you just in a minute. And the only thing that we have to do if we want to embed this functionality, load those scripts and CSS and something like this, you only have to know where the template or the library basically or is the document. You copy this and you can basically import as I've done it here. So only the raw markdown format. And what then happens is that the LiaScript, when it runs this, it loads this definition, checks the main header, and so are there new commands defined? Okay, I will load this. Which libraries shall I load as well, and stuff like this, and then yeah, you can basically now integrate also JSXGraph only with using the script functionality and with this macro system that I tried to show you. I already created a demo. So in this case, so here's a little demo how it looks like in a minimal example. So I only import the stuff. And then, so this is another type of writing or creating a macro. So if you have structured data or that define or that you want to pass as a parameter. So what you can do is basically you use a code block with your syntax highlighting and then add the macro just as something like a title into this. And this will use the entire code block and pass this as the, in this case, last parameter to the JSX macro graph macro in this case. So and you have this executable piece of snippet. So where your JSX graph animation is directly presented or embedded within the document. So here's just these examples of the first one. For example, a simple JSX graph, as I did this before. I took this from the documentation, this example, and this will simply start or draw or render this whatever code is in there. So, and if, as you have seen in LiaScript, you can also inspect scripts. If you want to add this functionality, for example, to your users, you have to use the macro JSX script. And this is indicated in here. We'll add this colorful background. So this is for your users, the ability so that they can basically inspect also this code that is running here. And also do like change, play around with it, like it's blue. So it gets re-rendered basically, or we don't know what I can, if this makes some changes. Let's math cosinus and some of this. Okay, I don't know if this has changed something, but basically you can see you can play around with it with a running example. So inspecting, you don't have to trust basically the programmer, or you can, basically the idea is to experiment with it. So maybe you can learn more of this. If you want to do something like code evaluation, like with a music example. So the idea is, as I mentioned, you only have to append a script tag, which tells the script environment how to deal with the current input. So here's basically just a larger example. And I did not add a script tag, but only this JSX eval macro, which does actually add the script tag automatically. So during the rendering or parsing process, it will be identified. So this is an executable example. So if I run this, you get this visualization for free. Basically, you can increase this, and you can, I don't know, play around, edit this, for example, change the code if you want to. You see, the new version has appeared. I can inspect this, what happens. Oh, I messed up, so I better go back to the previous version of my code and edit this or make some changes. So it's actually pretty easy and pretty straightforward. And in LiaScript, what you also have is the ability to add like quizzes, for example, as I've shown you, like quiz, multiple choice. Let's add this one. So it's pretty, wherever the X is, for example, it's just like this is the correct answer. Check, oh, this was not correct. So check this again. So you define the question above and something like this. So there are a couple of such easy, like we call it visual metaphors that you can use to ask the user. So if you add the solution like with an X, this will be a quiz. If you add options with name, this will be a survey. So if I go back to, there's also a generic version of a quiz, which basically only uses this double bracket notation, is always also associated with quizzes. And as with a code evaluation, you can also add something like a script tag to your to the quiz basically, which does then checks if the user answered correctly. And what I do here is there are like two. There's this JSX load, so it will load the code that's within this JavaScript file, which basically is this from the website, this example, mirroring example, and this one will add like a global variable. Like whenever I do some changes, we have to find the perfect match. So this is obviously not correct at the moment. So, but I get this ability to, as you can see, check this in here. That's not the correct quiz, basically, because the values are not correct. I think there are multiple solutions also to this one. So, but now, well, damn it. So it should be actually the correct mirrored position. I'll check this. Okay, congrats, you get the right answer. So these are basically, you can link those executions of these scripts or merge them together with these global variables. And what I also wanted to show when here's something like these calculations, basically, when you switch off the slide, when you change the slide, I mean, basically the state of your not executed within the script. If the script remembers its state, but if you have something like in this case where the code is loaded and which does add some state or contains some state by itself, in this case the rotation, and so that this does not get destroyed basically. So you can tell it just like with this macro that tell them this slide should be persistent, and when I leave the slide, it's not destroyed. So if you add a video, for example, and you switch the slide, the video will still be played. So this might be annoying in this case. So you only have to know that uh, state can be preserved of the entire slate and all components if you simply add this definition like persistent to true to the head of your slide or to the globally to the main header. And last but not least, so you can basically you can also combine these features. Like we have now this LiaScript macro system, and in this case, more integration. And as you've seen, we simply combine this, for example, with the like we have a script that takes or outputs only a value, in this case, the red format, and we have this formula. So as a user, you can combine this with a JSXGraph implementation here with another script tag that gets evaluated probably if I or reevaluated if I change the color or recalculate it, or you can also add like change the formulas. if you want to. Let's add this to. So this one does not work. So this one changed something, but it's not visible. Codons X. Yeah, but something has changed basically. And the idea is like within the previous example, so that this one only contains the string of the formula and outputs this as the subject formula. And this board basically uses this as an input to perform or to run the calculation. So whenever I change the color or whenever I change the formula, this one gets reevaluated basically. So as another, and as a last example, like with custom macros, can even go beyond. Like I've created like my own macro text substitution. So basically, it starts with add JSX formula. So if I have some nice visualization that I want to reuse within the context of my course, I simply define a custom macro. Whenever I call this, for example, JSX formula, it gets substituted by this code block JSX script tag, which again, this adds another macro, which then again gets reevaluated. And the only thing that what you pass into this is basically you add stroke color as the first parameter, and then adds the actual formula. So and combine this with these animation steps. So I simply in the first step call this JSX formula. It should be read with this formula basically. And so you get this visualization. You can still inspect this, change this, or do whatever you want to with it, and then go on to the next one. So it's simply x squared, and combine this also with another one. So like with sinus function. I hope that's quite easy. So it's basically it's not programming in this case. It's simply like a text substitution, which I learned from computer system algebras can be a powerful tool to solve complex problems also in this case. But it's quite, yeah, the thing is that LiaScript is just meant to be a language for those who don't have that programming skills to host or generate an online course fancy with probably text-to-speech output and animation, stuff like this, or to add different features. And in this case, this extension for JSXGraph, I think it fits perfectly into the LiaScript environment. So if you go, or do you have questions so far?
This is amazing, André. Thank you very much. I think there are questions or comments.
So yeah, please go ahead because I would show you also the last thing is probably if you go to the, I mean, so the idea if I open the, where's the main stuff? So if I want to have somewhere my markdown document, as I mentioned, and the only thing that you have to do is basically I go to the README, it can be hosted somewhere, and you simply need the raw text format. So this is the latest version, but it could be also tagged like within GitHub, so that you none of the old versions basically lost. And if you go to the LiaScript website, then you have this ability to simply enter and load this. And this is basically not a server, this is a static web page. So if I load this course, it basically loads this or proceeds to the course URL, which contains the LiaScript interpreter, which is a progressive web app written in mostly L. And it simply instructs it to load this content, and you have this stuff in here then all stored in once. And the thing is, okay, I've now just opened or two courses so far, so I can go back and revisit it again. And I think in Firefox, if I open it there, there are a couple of more courses, content so far opened. So here, just like simple examples of other stuff that are can go back as a user. So if I open one course, I'm not ready with it. So I open this one, but it's actually LiaScript interpreter by itself. You can host it if you want to, also by your own. But the thing is, the content can be stored, or your content can be stored somewhere. So we are not aware of who is using the system, or our language, who is creating content. What you can also do, there's an exporter on the, where's that go? Let me go back. There is an exporter that you can use to transpile or compile your course, or pack it basically into like a score package, like even Android SDK, but this requires more configuration basically, or a static website, or like you can create a PDF out of it and share this with your students. So it can be transpiled into different stuff if you want to. And last but not least, so the list of templates. So they are like JSXGraph. I tagged this as an example so that it appears within this list. But there are also other libraries that you can basically use it, like it's a self-descriptive markdown document that you simply import, or with this import statement, and that you can, like the JSXGraph, and then you can reuse this in whatever circumstances within your course, basically. So that's it.